Welcome to the Scottsdale Heritage Connection Messenger Family Research Room at Scottsdale's Civic Center Library. I'm Joan Fudala, community historian. And I guess I also have to admit that I've been a lifelong golfer, but I have a really high handicap. Regardless of my high handicap, I've always loved the game and its traditions, and particularly like Scottsdale's rich history of golf, whether that's golf itself, the golf courses, golf events, golf businesses, and all the golf stars that seem to congregate here, both for pro-ams and our big tournaments. Actually, we've been the center of golf in the whole Southwest for well over a century and continue to make golf history every day. Maybe you've made some of your own, a hole-in-one, a particular family memory, or playing in a famous tournament, or just going to watch. So I hope that you will join me for a round of golf in Scottsdale, historically speaking that is, for the next few minutes. To set the stage, and I always like to create some context of how this particular topic of golf history in Scottsdale fits in with golf history in general or Scottsdale history. Some debate whether golf started in either Holland or Scotland, but it actually came to the colonies, the United States, in about 1888, which coincidentally was the very year that Winfield and Helen Scott homesteaded Scottsdale. Golf came to the Arizona Territory less than 12 years later when the forerunner of the Phoenix Country Club opened in about 1899 to 1900, and that's when it was located near where the Arizona State Fairgrounds are today. The following year, after it opened in about 1900, the Phoenix Country Club hosted the very first golf tournament in the Arizona Territory. So we were off and running as a golf territory, if you will. Well, then golf finally came to Scottsdale, and I shouldn't say finally because it was only 10 years later when the first golf course opened in conjunction with the opening of our very first luxury resort in the Scottsdale area. W.J. Murphy and his son Ralph, who had developed the Arizona Canal and bought a lot of land in what we now know as the Arcadia area, wanted to create a place where wealthy investors could come and enjoy the winter season and hopefully either buy land or perhaps even move here and establish a new business or a new farm or a citrus ranch in this particular area. So they opened the Ingleside Inn in 1910. And knowing the kind of wealthy clientele that they were hoping to attract here for the winter season, they felt that a golf course would also be an amenity that these wealthy potential investors and land speculators might want to have. I love the marketing slogan for the Ingleside Inn complex that included the golf course. Their slogan was, "Where summer loves to linger and winter never comes." The original 9-hole golf course that they established was just north of the Arizona Canal and reached from the Ingleside Inn via a footbridge. The canal actually served as a water hazard. Will Robinson was the course designer, and Scottish emigre Harry Collis was the first golf pro. We also started our long tradition of having celebrity golfers come to Scottsdale because the Vice President of the United States, Thomas Marshall, and his wife were frequent guests at the Ingleside Inn while they were having a winter home built right in downtown Scottsdale on Indian School Road. And so Vice President Thomas Marshall frequently played golf at the Ingleside course. And again, that set a trend for many celebrity golfers to follow coming to Scottsdale. So now let's talk about how that golf course and all the early golf courses were in the Arizona Territory. So imagine this. You arrive at the Ingleside course on a sunny winter day. If you're a man, you're dressed in a coat and tie and golf knickers, if you will, those kind of bunched up pants with probably argyle socks and a driving cap on your head, but you were very nattily dressed. If you were a woman, you had a full-length dress on and a hat with a very broad brim to keep the sun out. You would approach the all-dirt fairway, no grass, not a blade of grass, and drive to the green. And once you hit the green, it was all sand and cotton seeds, the actual small cotton seed ground down, and that comprised the green. Again, no grass. What was really interesting, and this almost sounds like cheating to me, is that there was a rake that you would rake a line between the hole and where your golf ball was on the green, and then putt down that line, which again, it was almost creating a groove between your ball and the hole. So again, not exactly what USGA rules are today, but hey, it was the beginning of golf in Scottsdale. And I also might mention that the greens fees in that particular time frame, when it opened all the way up through the 1920s, was 50 cents a round. Wow. So speaking of rules, there are some pretty different rules in this year that I am giving this talk in early 2021, and that is the rules that the USGA established last spring at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And those were rules from everything from wearing a mask when you play golf, to putting with the flag stick still in the hole, to not having to rake the bunkers because you didn't want to share the hand-held rakes with other people. And of course, no high fives after a really good round. So you just never know how the rules of golf may have to alter to the situation. So back to the chronological evolution of golf in the Scottsdale area. By the late 1920s, grass was finally introduced to area courses. The Phoenix Country Club, as well as Ingleside and the San Marcos courses, all were grassed in by the late 1920s, early 1930s. And the MacArthurs also put in a grass course, the Adobe, at their new Arizona Biltmore golf course in 1929. And back then, the development of the few golf courses in Arizona were predominantly driven by where they would have some access to water, particularly if they were grassing in the courses. So again, talking about the chronology of golf, here's where we start talking about our beloved Phoenix Open Golf Tournament. It actually started in 1932 as a small tournament hosted at the Phoenix Country Club. When I say small, I'm also talking about the take-home pay or the purse for the first golf pros that played in that tournament. The first purse was a princely sum of $600. Ralph Goodall won that purse, and the famous Gene Saracen came in fifth, and he pocketed in fifth place $100. Because of the modest purses and the pre-celebrity days of golfers back in the 1930s when the Phoenix Open first began, the players actually stayed in the homes of the sponsoring organization, the Phoenix Thunderbirds. They not only stayed there, but they ate dinner with the families of the Thunderbirds, and the players drove themselves between tournaments around the United States. In fact, Ben Hogan was actually injured in a fairly serious car accident after he left the 1949 Phoenix Open en route to his next tournament in Texas. Fortunately, he recovered and went on to win many tournaments. I might mention that at the start of World War II, in the early 40s, believe it or not, there were only 19 golf courses in the entire state of Arizona. And contrast that to today, when there are 19 courses in Scottsdale alone, just above, north of Pinnacle Peak Road. Many more golf courses in the entire Scottsdale area, and hundreds of courses around the state of Arizona. But remember, 19 courses in the entire state as World War II broke out, and 19 now just north of Pinnacle Peak Road in Scottsdale. So I'd say we've had a pretty sizable golf explosion in the last 60 years or so. Now, during World War II, of course, with travel restrictions and many people in wartime military or civilian service, golf kind of took a vacation, if you will. And even the Phoenix Open didn't play in the height of World War II during 1943. But after the war was over and travel began again in earnest, and many people started migrating to live in the Metro Phoenix and particularly the Scottsdale area, there was really a hunger to start playing golf again. And one of the things that also a lot of the newly arrived new residents in the Scottsdale area they wanted to belong to country clubs, because perhaps they or their parents had belonged to country clubs back in the Midwest or the East Coast. So one of the first to open in the Scottsdale area was what had been the former Ingleside Golf Course morphed into the Arizona Country Club Golf Course. It opened as a redesigned golf course in 1946, designed by Ernest Suggs and Willie Wansa. Oh, I love that name. A few years later, it was redesigned by local golf legend Johnny Bulla and has been updated several times since. Golf was the primary thing, and they didn't get around to building a country club until several years later. But in the interim, after a round of golf, the golfers would adjourn to their 19th hole libations at the nearby Outpost Inn, where they could not only talk about their game, but also listen to the popular torch singer Mimi, located at the Outpost Inn. Now, during those post-World War II years, the Phoenix Open golf tournament came back in much glory and made many historic firsts. Actually, the Phoenix Thunderbirds, again, the host organization, began alternating hosting the course between the Arizona Country Club and the Phoenix Country Club every other year, starting in 1955. The tournament was held every year, it just alternated between the two courses. So as it played at the Arizona Country Club, it brought a lot of golf notoriety and celebrities and pros to the Scottsdale area. A lot of golf tournament history was made at those late 1940s, 50s, and early 1960s tournaments held at the Arizona Country Club here in Scottsdale. In fact, Arnold Palmer made his professional debut, as did Arnie's Army, the many spectators following Arnie around the golf courses. And in fact, during those years, he won the tournament 3 times. History was also made here in Scottsdale at the Arizona Country Club Golf Course when the first African American participated in the Phoenix Open, Charlie Sifford, and that was in 1959. And another historic footnote happened at the Arizona Country Club. The first Open was televised in 1973, and TV audiences certainly got a beautiful impression of this area as it was broadcast during the late January, early February timeframe. Interestingly, the TV audiences actually got a better view of the tournament and the players because the Arizona Country Club and the Phoenix Country Club have rather flat layouts, and the spectators actually had to use cardboard periscopes in order to see the play, unless they were, of course, in the very front row. That certainly changed, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes when the tournament, the Phoenix Open tournament, moved to the Scottsdale's TPC golf course in 1987. So again, talking about how the courses evolved in Scottsdale, in 1953 we got our first resort and public golf course when Sundown Ranch Golf Course opened just north of then the municipal limits. It opened between Shea and Cactus Road along what is now Hayden Road. It was also not only an 18-hole golf course, but they did have a small resort connected to it. It was later renamed Scottsdale Country Club, and now it's known as Starfire at Scottsdale Country Club. But after it opened in 1953, it became popular with people like Ben Hogan, who came usually a few days before he played in the Phoenix Open so he could tune up his game. It was also the home course for several local high school teams like the Scottsdale High and the Judson School teams, as well as hosting the Roadrunner Invitational Golf Tournament held here in the 1960s. I might also mention, if you're comparing golf greens fees today to what they were back then, a 1955 advertisement listed the weekday greens fees of the Sundown Ranch golf course at $2, and on weekends and holidays it was raised to $3 for 18 holes. And if you were a guest at the resort, golf was free. Now let's talk a little bit more about the evolution of some of the other country clubs in Scottsdale and how that again continued to put us on the map. And when I say Scottsdale, I'm talking about the Scottsdale area, which would certainly include Paradise Valley. The Paradise Valley Country Club was a dream that took fruition. In 1953, the course was designed by Lawrence Hughes with a lot of input from our local golf star, Gray Madison, and the golf course opened for play in 1954. Its membership roster included a real who's who of the valley at the time, and quickly rose to the status of being the club to belong in the whole metro area with lengthy waits for membership. And you just never knew who you were going to see on the course. In fact, President Ike Eisenhower, who is known for his love of the game of golf and a devout player, played Paradise Valley Country Club in 1958 in the foursome that included Arizona Republic publisher Gene Pulliam. Paradise Valley Country Club has also hosted other presidents like JFK, Jerry Ford, Ronald Reagan, and others. And a well-known local man who became vice president under George H.W. Bush, and that would be Dan Quayle. His family actually lived on one of the fairways of the Paradise Valley Golf Course, so he grew up here. And you also might say that Paradise Valley Country Club had a link to how we arrived at having spring training here. The Orioles general manager Paul Richards was here playing golf in 1955 when he stopped at the Pink Pony, started talking to some businessmen there, and they conjured up the idea that if Scottsdale built a baseball stadium, that Paul Richards would bring the Orioles here. The men, some of whom he had played golf with, were true to their word. They built a stadium, and before the end of that year, 1955, we had a Scottsdale ballpark, and in 1956, we had the Baltimore Orioles here. So see, there's a lot of sports ties here between golf and baseball. The Indian Bend Country Club was another one that opened in the 1950s here, right on Pima Road. And again, speaking of baseball, when the Cubs played spring training here between 1967 and 1978, their manager, Leo DeRocher, and many of the Cubs played in a tournament that was held in conjunction with spring training. The Scottsdale Charros, who were hosts of spring training here in Scottsdale, also hosted two very famous golf tournaments, one in 1968 and one in 1969 at the Indian Bend Country Club. And that was, they brought in the club professionals from all over the United States and had the PGA Pros tournaments here. That country club was later renamed and the Pima Golf Club, and then was known as the Pavilion Lakes Golf Club, that was torn down in the early 2000s to make way for the Salt River Field baseball complex which opened in February of 2011. So again, a lot of ties between baseball and golf here at Scottsdale. Another country club that I might mention is the Century Golf Club that opened on 56th Street between Shea and Cactus in 1957. Regrettably, in the early years of golf, many of the country clubs and golf courses restricted themselves to white players only, and also often excluded different ethnic and religious groups. And the Century Golf Club opened in 1957 primarily to welcome Jewish members. Fortunately, thanks to the civil rights movement and many more accepting policies at golf courses, thank goodness, that golf course then became fully open to everyone, as other golf courses in the area and country clubs as well, welcoming players of all backgrounds to their memberships and for public play. And that Century Golf Course, of course, today is known as the Orange Tree Golf Resort. Clubs suffered a bit in the 1960s, so some opened their private memberships to hotel guests for daily play, and also the revenue from renting golf carts, believe it or not, helped carry the day for those public courses that might have been suffering financially. Another golf course that opened as a country club was the Villa Monterey Golf Course. And I mention that because not only was that built as a centerpiece for a housing development along what we now know as Hayden Road, but that the course actually was built over the area that later became Hayden Road. But because it was built in the Indian Bend Wash, the golf course, from the time that it opened in the late 1950s, actually proved the concept that landscape architects like Bill Walton recognized as a way to control flooding of the Indian Bend Wash by its use as a recreation area rather than the alternative that had been proposed by government agencies to make the Indian Bend Wash a miles-long concrete channel. So we have the Villa Monterey Golf Course and Country Club to thank for being almost an experiment in flood control in Scottsdale. Now, as the 50s progressed and we built more resorts in Scottsdale, a lot of golf courses and pitch and putts were put at these courses. Camelback Inn had a pitch and putt golf course right in front of it, between the actual inn and Lincoln Drive. The Valley Country Club opened as a resort course shared by the Jokaki and Paradise Inns. And Mountain Shadows, when it opened as a resort in 1959, included an 18-hole executive-length par 3 course, which was a popular venue for ladies and seniors tournaments, as well as those that just wanted to soak in the beauty and have a quicker round of golf. Another pitch and putt golf course that became popular during a week of TV filming was the pitch and putt course that was located at what was then the Executive House Arizonian, now known as Fire Sky, or actually the Scott today. It's changed names several times. But the Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., who was in town in the 1960s filming a show for the FBI series that he starred in, was putting every day after the filming ended on that particular course. And I'm told that ladies from around Scottsdale would suddenly have a thirst for coffee in the coffee shop or a cocktail in the cocktail lounge, so they could look out the windows and watch this television star practice his putting. There were also golf ranges that opened in Scottsdale, believe it or not, at that busy intersection today of Camelback and Scottsdale Road. In the 1960s, there was a driving range located there called the Paradise Driving Range. There were other driving ranges and miniature golf courses set up. In far north Scottsdale, before the area was annexed into Scottsdale, there was a very rugged golf course called Ironwood Golf Course. And then later, as I mentioned, when the Indian Bend Wash was being developed as a recreational area, the Coronado and Continental golf courses opened for daily fee play and were very affordable golf courses. Our local high schools added teams starting in the 1950s. Scottsdale High School fielded a golf team as early as 1954. And as I mentioned earlier, Dan Quayle, a future Vice President of the United States during the 1980s, grew up in Scottsdale, and in 1962 he was a member of the Scottsdale High School golf team. Judson School also had a very competitive golf team and played a number of home courses here in Scottsdale. And I might mention that after Scottsdale Community College opened in 1970 on their campus on the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, they began having a very competitive golf team there. And the Artichokes, as they were known, of course, have won at least a dozen national and national junior college athletic association golf tournaments. Well, all kinds of tournaments have brought fun and tourism and economic impact to Scottsdale. As I've mentioned, the Phoenix Open started play in the 50s and 60s and early 70s at Arizona Country Club, but also we've had so many other interesting tournaments. The Scottsdale Charros hosted 2 years in a row in the 1970s the annual American Airlines Golf Classic that brought sports celebrities from NFL and Major League Baseball teams here. The Fiesta Bowl tournaments have been held at Troon Country Club. The Anderson Consulting World Championship of Golf in the mid to late 1990s was played at the then new Greyhawk golf courses. The Tradition was played at Desert Mountain. We've had the Tommy Bahama tournament, we've had the Schwab Cup, and we have junior amateur tournaments at Greyhawk, as well as the upcoming NCAA tournament to be played at Greyhawk, hopefully this May in 2021. It was canceled last year because of COVID, or postponed, I should say. Golf has really helped drive many of the master plan communities in Scottsdale. Certainly McCormick Ranch, as our first master plan community, featured 2 18-hole golf courses. Gainey Ranch was built around golf courses. And as our population moved north, Pinnacle Peak Country Club featured an 18-hole course, as well as Jerry Nelson's developments of Troon and Troon North, all featuring 18-hole golf courses. But perhaps one of the ones that really put Scottsdale golf and the desert golf concept on the map was when Desert Highlands opened in 1983. The golf course actually opened before the first residents moved in. But a collaboration between golf great Jack Nicklaus and developer Lyle Anderson built this beautiful course at the south base of Pinnacle Peak Mountain. And it really took the desert and its environment into play, where there was very little of the course that was grass that needed to be watered. A lot of the desert came into play with long carries over rugged desert, and it was considered very environmentally friendly. Well, to really put us on the map, the first 2 Skins games were played there, one in 1983 and one in 1984, played over the Thanksgiving weekend. and it pitted Gary Watson, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and Gary Player, the four most famous golfers in the world at that time. The tournament was broadcast on the then new ESPN sports channel, and so people that were in the Midwest and back east and were shivering, perhaps in snowy conditions, could look at their television and not only see a really great golf tournament, but also see the beauty of Scottsdale and its desert, and certainly that put us on the map. Lyle Anderson and Jack Nicklaus went on to design more golf courses in far north Scottsdale at Desert Mountain during the late 1980s through the 1990s and early 2000s. Desert Mountain now actually has 7 golf courses. They also were put on the map when the tradition of a stop on the senior golf tour started play there in 1989, and again saw many of our famous golf. It was like going to the Golf Hall of Fame to watch the seniors play there, and both Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer won, as well as several other golf greats at the tradition. And that also then started a trend for other luxury golf courses in far north Scottsdale, including places like Mirabelle, Legend Trail, and Whisper Rock. So now let's get back to the Phoenix Open. It again was mainly played in the late 1970s and early 1980s at the Phoenix Country Club. It stopped its rotation to the Arizona Country Club in 1973. But due to some very interesting and delicate negotiations among the Thunderbirds and Mayor Drinkwater and golfers at the time on the city council like Jim Bruner and Bill Walton and the PGA, we were able to get the Phoenix Open to move to what we had planned to build in Scottsdale as the TPC Scottsdale. And this was much to the chagrin of the city of Phoenix that Scottsdale scored that wonderful golf tournament. And it's been here ever since it first played at the TPC Scottsdale in 1987. The TPC Scottsdale, built just north of the CAP Canal, is really a course that is perfect for the tournament, because with the hilly conditions that were created there, spectators are able to go along the berms, which provide almost a natural amphitheater for all of the holes. And over the years, the tournament has grown to be, some have called it one of the largest cities in Arizona during the tournament week. It has averaged 500,000 attendees since the early 2000s, and hit a peak in 2018 with a week-long attendance of 718,000 attendees to the golf tournament and all of its associated events during that week. Unfortunately, because of COVID this year in 2021, the Thunderbirds, the host organization, have had to cap the attendance at about, I believe it's 5,000 people a day. But I'm giving this talk a week or two before the tournament's actually held, so it remains to be seen how many people are actually going to be able to watch that tournament. And we certainly hope that in future years, as people get the vaccine and the pandemic is eradicated, that we'll get back to having that be the premier tournament on the PGA course, certainly at the 16th hole, which has gained quite the party reputation among the people who follow the PGA Tour. The PGA actually named it the Tournament of the Year in 2014, and again several years after that. And Waste Management has been the contract sponsor for the last several years, and has actually agreed to be a sponsor through 2024. But one of the most significant things about this particular tournament, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, and its host, the Phoenix Thunderbirds, is that it earns so much money that is returned by the Thunderbirds to the local nonprofit and charitable community in the area. In fact, in 2020, the Thunderbirds returned $14 million back to local nonprofits and charities throughout the Metro Phoenix area. Certainly a lot of that money coming to Scottsdale area charities. So golf courses continued to build out during the 1990s and 2000s. Again, to drop a few names, as the population moved north, we had and also east like Ancala toward Mayo down on Shea, Club Terra Vida to the north, Greyhawk, Legend Trail, Estancia, Kierland, DC Ranch, and Silvermine, DC Ranch, Talking Stick, the Sanctuary, which then was renamed McDowell Mountain Golf Course, Whisper Rock, Mirabelle, and perhaps one of the last golf courses, major golf courses to be built in the early 2000s was the Golf Club of Scottsdale, which then a few years later was purchased by Bob Parsons of GoDaddy fame, who then renamed it the Scottsdale National. Also, during that time period, while we were having that huge boom in new golf courses, 2 golf courses closed. Villa Monterey closed and is now the site of the City of Scottsdale's Camelback Park. And Pavilion Lakes, as I mentioned earlier, closed to make way for the Salt River Fields Baseball Park. We've also, in addition to building these golf courses, grown our own famous golf course architects and brought in many famous golf architects to build our golf courses. I've already mentioned Jack Nicklaus, but we've also had throughout our history Jack Schneider, Red Lawrence, Johnny Bulla, Milt Coggins, Tom Weiskopf, Jay Morrish, Gary Panks, Scott Miller, Randy Heckenkamper, Arnold Palmer, Phil Mickelson, Tom Fazio, Nick Faldo, Tom Lehman, Dick Bailey, and so many more golf course architects who have created the most beautiful and memorable golf layouts here in Scottsdale. Boy, are we lucky. We also have grown a golf industry that creates jobs and economic impact here, and also furthers Scottsdale's fame as a golf center, not only in the Southwest, but the nation and the world. Perhaps one of the first ones that put Scottsdale on the map for a golf industry was when Karsten Solheim started mail ordering his famous putters from a Scottsdale post office. He was making the putters in his garage located in Phoenix and then later a factory, but he was shipping them from a Scottsdale post office, which meant that it had a Scottsdale postmark, and people started referring to those putters as the Scottsdale putter. So that again put Scottsdale on the map. Since that time, other golf industries that have started here, Dana Garmany started Troon Golf, a golf course management company that started with local courses and now manages golf courses throughout the world. We also have a local golf star in the form of Bob Parsons, who started PGX, a golf club manufacturing company here located in the Scottsdale Air Park. And also interesting for those of us who play a lot of golf, we rely on the GPS system in golf carts, and that concept was actually started in the 1990s in a business incubator located here in Scottsdale. Scottsdale's golf industry is a multi-million-dollar industry here for Scottsdale, and throughout the state of Arizona, golf has become a billion-dollar industry, in addition to, again, impacting tourism and recreation and a healthy lifestyle. So as I wind up this round of golf in Scottsdale, I want to make sure that we remember some of the golf legacies. I've talked about the courses, the architects, and the industry and some of the tournaments that have certainly put Scottsdale on the golf course roster. But also, let's not forget that the desert golf concept was started here. We also were the first municipality to adopt a reclaimed water ordinance, and in the late 1980s opened a facility where we could recycle gray water and start irrigating our golf courses with reclaimed water, which again is a very environmentally sound concept. Again, another legacy is a golf course proved the Indian Bend Wash recreational concept and avoided us having a long concrete channel. Certainly a legacy is the fame of the Phoenix Open Golf Tournament, and last but not least, we're so well known throughout the world for our beautiful golf courses and our healthy lifestyle, which certainly includes a round of golf whenever we can. So I hope that you'll enjoy golf, whether you're watching it on television, going out and playing with friends and family or work colleagues, or perhaps being able to just know that golf is a wonderful part of living and working and retiring here in Scottsdale, Arizona. See you at the golf course.